words, poetry, with a reason for the day and the place and the venue. And I'm going to ask Pat McMahon now to say a few words to you all to introduce the day. But if you know any poems, or you have a favourite poem, or you'd like to make a request for a poem, or you'd like to read a poem we'll give you, please come and join us, or just pause gently as you pass by and enjoy the poetry. Pat.
Thank you very much, Donald, and good morning. Good morning, everybody. Many of us here believe that poetry is like bread. Poetry is like bread. It should be shared by all our vast, incredible, extraordinary family of humanity. That's what Pablo Neruda, the Nobel Prize-winning Chilean poet, had to say about poetry. And we are here today on World Book Day, not in a privileged, quiet space of a museum or a gallery, but we are here in a shopping centre. We are in an open public space so that poetry might be shared with the widest possible audience. To share it, in the words of Neruda, with our extraordinary family of humanity. This event is organised worldwide by UNESCO, and the head of UNESCO, Irina Bakova, in a special message for today, she said that books help to weave humanity together as a single family. Books weave humanity together as a single family. So that's what we celebrate on World Book Day. The power of books to nurture creativity, and to support dialogue between women and men of all cultures. World Book Day, as we celebrate it, is a day where all voices are heard in that great chorus of human aspiration. And in turbulent times, books are symbols of hope and of dialogue that we must cherish and defend. You will notice on the bookstall and here you will notice the colours of Catalonia and the colourful roses around us here today. Well, World Book Day was inspired by a wonderful Catalan tradition. There is a tradition in Catalonia of exchanging books and roses on St Jordi's Day, which is the 23rd of April, and hence UNESCO has chosen this date as a worldwide tribute to books. St Jordi's Day is Catalonia's most romantic day of the year. This very morning, as I speak, there is romance and roses and books on the streets of Barcelona and in other Catalan cities. And today is the day when people take to the streets to buy books and roses, which they give to their lovers, their friends, and their family. Today, all of Catalonia becomes one big street festival. A sea of countless bookstores selling books and roses, and thousands of people are strolling the streets to enjoy that atmosphere. Well, we are here this morning to share in that tradition and hopefully to bring a touch of Catalonia here to Limerick City. And we've got a Barcelona blue in the sky, which I think is helping us a lot. So we look forward to the readings, and I want to thank all the participants. And I especially want to thank the staff here of the Arthurs Quay Shopping Centre. I want to thank Jerry and Owen and David and Shar for all the assistance this morning. Now I'll hand you back to Donald.
We're not here preaching politics. God forbid we're not preaching religion. We're preaching love and poetry and words. So do come and join us. Words, Barcelona recreated in Arthurs Quay Shopping Centre. Isn't that wonderful? We're going to start with a really bit of authentic Barcelona and Catalan. Those of us who prefer to be in Barcelona today, but you know, we'll do our best here. And we're delighted to welcome Núria Borrell, who lectures in Spanish at the University of Limerick and who is a Catalan. And she's going to read and explain a short poem by Josep Maria de Segarra, a very popular Catalan poet and playwright. The poem is entitled St Jordi Gloriós. Maria.
Thank you, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. I haven't been to Catalonia on this festivity for a long time, so I'm really very happy. The poem is called St Jordi Gloriós. I'm going to read it in Catalan. It was written for this festivity with this idea in mind of St Jordi's patron saint of Catalonia, as well as being patron saint of the UK. Okay? And this idea of St George, Catalonia, and roses and love. Sant Jordi té una rosa mig desclosa, pintada de vermell i de neguit. Catalunya és el nom d'aquesta rosa i Sant Jordi la porta sobre el pit. La rosa li ha contat gràcies i penes, i ell se l'estima fins qui sap on, i amb ella té més sang a dins les venes per plantar cara a tots els dracs del món. I'll just translate it in English. I'm not a poet, so just the sense of the poem, okay? St. George the Glorious. St. George has a half-open rose painted in red and made of sorrow. Catalonia is the name of that rose, and St. George displays it on his chest. The rose has showed him happiness and sorrow, but he carries it in his soul, and thanks to that rose, he has more blood in his veins to face all the dragons of the world.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Maria. That brought a real bit of authenticity. Maybe I'd rather be here than in Barcelona. Our second reader is Pat Stack, who's going to read in Spanish also and give us a translation. So we're delighted to welcome Pat.
Thank you, Donald. I'm going to read from a little book I picked up in Madrid about a month ago by a Spanish poet called Rodrigo Sánchez Ferrer. Now, I'm fluent in Spanish because I lived in Seville for 7 years, but I have absolutely no, I didn't study Spanish literature or anything, so the only thing I knew about Spanish was Machado and the famous poets. So I was curious as to what modern Spanish poetry was, and I asked a few people in Spain, friends, and nobody had any idea of who to recommend. So we just went to a bookshop, myself and my wife, and she picked the book out actually. It's a lovely little book, so I'm really taken with the poetry. So I'm going to read 3 of his poems. He was born in Canals in Valencia in 1982, and he's an architect by profession. And it says here that he's also interested in musical projects. So obviously he's a very cultural person. So I'm going to read 3 of his poems, and I've done little translations. The first is called The Walls of Sleep. I'll read it in Spanish first and then the translation. Las paredes del sueño, para Carmen. Te llamo a veces, a gritos, desesperado, desde el interior de las pesadillas. y siempre acudes milagrosamente al rescate como un agente antidisturbios. Suelo preguntarme cómo atraviesan esos gritos las paredes del sueño y, ya puestos, de qué material imposible estarán hechas, si de maíz o papel, aire o mármol de Macael. ¿Y cómo es posible que para echar abajo tan inexpugnables murallas baste una mano levemente encogida, dando forma a una caricia? The walls of sleep, for Carmen. I call out to you sometimes. Sometimes I call out to you at the top of my voice, in desperation, from the inside of my nightmares, and you always come miraculously to the rescue, like a member of the riot squad. I often wonder how those shouts penetrate the walls of sleep, and, since I mention it, of what impossible material they are constructed, whether of corn or paper, air or Macael marble. And how is it possible that all that is needed to tear down such impregnable walls is a lightly cupped hand in the shape of a caress? ¿Por dónde entra y por dónde sale? ¿Por qué un lunes de octubre y no un domingo, una tarde de siesta? ¿Qué laberintos recorre para alcanzar mis sueños? ¿Por qué tarda tanto siempre en volver? ¿O acaso, si es que lo hace siempre, qué es lo que borra sus huellas? ¿Por qué no puedo permanecer del otro lado, al suyo, desmenuzar la puerta que conduce a la mañana siguiente? ¿Cuánto tarda en enmendarse un corazón? My mother visits me in dreams. Where does she come in and where does she leave? Why one Monday in October and not a Sunday or a restful afternoon? What labyrinths does she walk down to reach my dreams? Why does she always take so long to return? Or perhaps, if it always does so, what is it that erases her footprints? Why cannot I remain on the other side, her side, to break down the door that leads to the following morning? How long does it take for a heart to mend? And I'll finish with this one called Coreografía. Coreografía. Descríbeme, dijo. Le tomé la mano y la llevé hasta las montañas. Allí, con un solo fósforo, hice arder 1000 árboles. ¿Esto soy?, preguntó. Negué con la cabeza y juntos esperamos a que pasara el fuego y ese mandala de fumarolas que anuncia su final. Cuando ya no quedaba nada, escuchamos el rumor. Ya vienes, le dije. Entonces llegó el viento y fue levantando lentamente la sábana de cenizas y un último estrato de tierra. Choreography. Describe me, she said. I took her by the hand and led her to the mountains. There, with a single match, I set fire to 1,000 trees. Is that me? She asked. I shook my head, and together we waited for the fire to pass, and that mandala of fumaroles that signals its end. When at last nothing was left, we heard the murmur. Here you come, I told her. It was then that the wind arrived and slowly lifted the blanket of ashes and the last layer of earth. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're going to bring you a whole wide variety of poetry today, from Spanish poetry to Desmond O'Grady to Shakespeare as well. Shane's up next with Shakespeare, but I thought I'd do one now, and local. Most people know about Christy Brown. Many will have seen the iconic film with Daniel Day-Lewis, a superb performance. Christy Brown was born into a large family in the very poor part of the Dublin slums. So he was very unlucky. He was also unlucky to be born severely disabled and hardly able to speak in the initial stages of his life. But he was lucky to be born to a wonderful mother. So he started off, and when he was about 8, the family were a little embarrassed. The other brothers really didn't get on well with him, but he was put in a box in the house, and the priest came and the doctors came, and they said, Mrs. Brown, you know, he really has to go into a home or something. But no, he was her son, and he was going to keep her. And he stayed in the house. When he was about 8, he stretched across the floor, picked up a piece of chalk, and drew a lion on the floor. And that was the clue to his mother. There's a brain in there somewhere, and I'll do something for it. So over the years, she nurtured him and helped him. So he was unlucky in one way, but very lucky in another. He went on to produce a book, My Left Foot, which was a moderate success. But later on then, with the money he gained from that, he bought an electric typewriter. And with that, he dictated My Left Foot to his mother. She could understand the sort of very guttural, poor voice he had. But then with the electric typewriter, he wrote a book called Down All the Days. And his papers, his letters are in the National Library. And John Banville thought it was one of the best pieces of writing to ever come out of Ireland. Richard Harris met him once, and Richard Harris was lucky enough to be on a stage and to read some of his writings out. And he then wrote a poem about it, and that's the one I'm going to read. Christy Brown came to town, riding on a wheelchair. Christy Brown came to town, riding on a wheelchair. Back strapped to wheel and chair, freewheeling down all his days, into the byways in our heads, visions bursting from his pen, ink in blood, left foot in rapture. Riding through Fleet Street pulp, past paper stand and paste, ploughing stairs to heaven, riding on and on and on, his chariot wheels conquering heroes in space in the time allocated for his spin. Reared in masses, his childhood playpen on concrete slabs, turned into flowing fountains in his fountain pen toes. Ceasing to suffer in the kennel of his bark, spent dark days and years with his ears tied to his mother's tongue. Where are you, mother? I am here, Christy. Growing flowers in your yard, sending fruit to the marketplace in your soul, patiently bending my breasts to feed the hunger in your mind. Dear bended lady, drawing she drew in midnight whispers the elements of verse, vocalizing grammar, building his armory for battle, filling his long sleepless nights with the music of her challenge. And she took a dead season from her womb and built a birth as bright as Christmas. In his schoolroom slum that buried some and crippled most, the toast from her womb grew legs in her words and walked long distance to the corners of the earth, striding beyond Gethsemane, past the Avenue of Sorrows, out of Golgotha into resurrection. Christy Brown came to town, riding on a donkey. Christy Brown came to town, riding on a donkey. Streets in palms carpeting his Sunday visit, He rode barebacked the donkey of the apocalypse, over bridges where crippled waters stood still, in the lame shores of our crimes. He rode heaven high over tears and pity through the attending city, where skeletons hid high in the cupboards of our complacency. He rode on and on and on he rode, on the laughter in his sighs everlasting in song, storming our ears in wonder, making his face shine upon us, and throwing from the seaweeds of his wisdom iodine to heal the wounds of a waiting world. Thank you. And just to say, Limerick Writers Centre are hoping to publish later this year. Richard Harris was a great actor and did well for the city and town, but he's also a great writer and a great poet. And last year, Limerick Writers Centre unveiled a plaque to his memory in Charlie St Jordi, and his son Jared came across and unveiled it. And as I say, hopefully we'll be publishing a thing, and perhaps with one or two others' helps, we'll be have some poetry films. Now we have one of the young Turks of poetry in Limerick. Oh, I'll do that. Sorry, I have to give a photograph tape, but I'm still going to introduce Shane so he can get up here. Shane is one of the founders of Stanzas, a superb group of young poets who meet once a month, or they seem to do something every week, once a month with an open mic and a Stanzas performance. If you can catch it, please do. It's great. Shane.
Muchas gracias, Don Carlo y la Dominic Plater and Limerick Writers Centre. Mi español es muy mal. I think Pablo Neruda es primero poeta por el mundo. Pero aquí libro Shakespeare. So what I'm trying to say in my butchered Spanish is thank you guys for inviting me. Yes, I'm Shane with Stanzas. Unfortunately, the other guys couldn't be here, but we are organising an event at Lucky Lane at 3, so we're a little busy doing that. If you want to come along, please do. I'm going to have to dash off shortly to organise it. When Dominic asked me to read here, I thought it'd be a little different to do some monologues as well as poetry, because Shakespeare wrote in pentameter, and it's beautiful just to read it as poetry. So I'm going to read his monologue from As You Like It, and it's All the World's a Stage. I'd like to dedicate this to my friend Alison because it's her favourite monologue, so there you go. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. At first, the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. Then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. And then the lover, sighing like furnace with a woeful ballad, made to his mistress's eyebrow. Then a soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, jealous in honour, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice, in fair round belly with good capon lined, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances. And so he plays his part. The 6th age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon with spectacles on nose and pouch on side. His youthful hose well saved a world too wide for his shrunk shank and his big manly voice. Turning again toward childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all, that ends this strange eventful history, is second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. Gracias.
Yeah. One more, right? Come on.
There we go.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Something doesn't work, then we swear at it. And it works next time.
So thank you, Shane, and that was our first bit of Shakespeare. Of course, it's the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death and Cervantes. So our next reader is Nolene Nash, and we're going to have a little bit more of Shakespeare.
To follow Shane. Okay, Sonnet 30. When to the sessions of sweet silent thought I summon up remembrance of things past, I sigh the lack of many a thing I sought, and with old woes new wail my dear time's waste. Then can I drown an eye, unused to flow, for precious friends hid in death's dateless night, and weep afresh love's long since cancelled woe, and moan the expense of many a vanished sight. Then can I grieve at grievances foregone, and heavily from woe to woe tell o'er the sad account of bemoaned moan, which I new pay as if I'm not paid before. But if the while I think on thee, dear friend, all losses are restored and sorrows end.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We're going to sack the photographer, I think, if he doesn't get a new battery. Our next reader, when he's finished helping the photographer, is the director of Limerick Writers Centre, Dominic Taylor, who'd forgotten he was going to read.
Thanks a million, Donald. I'm going to read a poem by Desmond O'Grady, because Desmond O'Grady is one of the writers that inspires the work of the Limerick Writers Centre. And his epitaph, which was lead full lives, leave some record, is one of the mottos that we really live by in the Limerick Writers Centre as we construct an arc of culture and to keep all the writing and all the readings that have been sort of happened in Limerick over the years. So this is his famous poem, Tipperary, and it's from the Irish Tibredorn, which means the fountain of perception or enlightenment. It's a long way to Tipperary. It's a long way to go and various. It's a torture of twists and about turns, disillusions, disappointments. The way to Tipperary appears permanently dark with only occasional twilights. If you decide to go to Tipperary, set out while you are young, plucky. At that age when you're bright-eyed and visions of radiant horizons of revelation and achievement, and you know nothing of the twilight or the dark. That age when all creation, all life shines clear as spring sunlight, bright as light-catching gold. When you set out, you must go alone. There are no maps on the way to Tipperary. Your only compass is your own heart. Trust that. Some see their Tipperary clearly from the start. See it's a long road, full of daily pitfalls of labyrinths of curious side streets, inviting guest houses, giddy with the temptations of those bogey people's trinket stalls, hokey-pokey, daily thieves of eternal energy. Easy come, easy go. You've sold your soul, you've no more choice. They sell bedlam. Explore all those side streets. Enjoy your chosen rest houses. Fool with a few trinkets to learn something of the way to Tipperary. The way to Tipperary, darkened with the shadows of all those who never got there anyway. Those who settled for some rest house, some casual trinket thief of time. Don't let those shadows mumbling in their own gloom deter or deviate you. Hold on to your main road. Keep going. Once you've decided to go to Tipperary, you'll realize you no longer belong to yourself. You must keep Tipperary in your sights daily. Although you can't see it, purpose is all. Without your Tipperary, you too are a mere shadow at those Limerick junctions of daily resolution. On the way to Tipperary, keep your eyes open for signals of direction, encouragement, that nod of understanding, comradeship, a cherishing arm on your pillow. You'll see beautiful sights on the way to Tipperary. Man's mirage tales, imagination's monuments. You'll behold the endless vistas, panoramas of vision. Be curious about them all, for the gracious gifts they will afford you. Without them, you live that much poorer. It's a long way to Tipperary, and when you get there, nothing awaits you. You'll find no road sign, no brass and a welcoming committee, with a proclamation you're in Tipperary and a medallion to hang around your neck. You'll find only what you brought with you in your heart. Then, what you must do is make and leave some record of what Tipperary means to you, as witness for all those behind you on their way to their own Tipperaries. It's a long way to Tipperary, but all our hearts lie there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. Our next reader is Michael Durack. Michael will be appearing at On the Nail, our next monthly On the Nail, which is on, I think, the 6th of May in the Buttery in Bedford Row. Michael launched his book a couple of months ago in Killaloo, and poetry and prose. And there are a couple of bits in there where almost every song I ever liked was in a poem or a bit of prose. It was lovely. So we welcome him to read with us tonight. Thank you.
I'm going to read a poem by Roger McGough, Liverpool poet, English poet. I discovered him, well, way back, maybe not in the 60s, but sometime after that. And he revived my interest in poetry, which had been dormant for a little bit. And the poem is called At Lunchtime, and it's a love poem, and in a kind of a way, a Cold War poem. When the bus stopped suddenly to avoid damaging a mother and child in the road, the young lady in the green hat sitting opposite was thrown across me. And not being one to miss an opportunity, I started to make love. At first, she resisted, saying that it was too early in the morning and too soon after breakfast, and anyway she found me repulsive. But when I explained that this being a nuclear age, the world was going to end at lunchtime, she took off her green hat, put her bus ticket into her pocket, and joined in the exercise. The bus people, and there were many of them, were shocked and surprised and amused and annoyed. But when word got around that the world was going to end at lunchtime, they put their pride in their pockets with their bus tickets and made love one with the other. And even the bus conductor, feeling left out, climbed into the cab and struck up some sort of relationship with the driver. That night, on the bus coming home, we were all a little embarrassed, especially me and the young lady in the green hat, and we all started to say in different ways how hasty and foolish we had been. But then, always having been a bit of a lad, I stood up and said it was a pity that the world didn't nearly end every lunchtime. And we could always pretend. And then it happened. Quick as a crash, we all changed partners, and soon the bus was a quiver with white mothball bodies doing naughty things. And the next day, and every day, in every bus, in every street, in every town, in every country, people pretended that the world was coming to an end at lunchtime. It still hasn't, although in a way it has.
Thank you, Michael. Our next reader is Sean Rudicon. He's going to read one of his own poems.
Wel ma fod hwn. Mae'n fi Spanish agos Catalonish yn beolag yn gydeiso agos mae'n beolag yn o'ch danas gwerin yn Si'n dochus ysdola cawn sy'n temi ys mô tas ni lich agos hanach wy'n article for the dawn at is nid o'r the dawn o the Hawani I just want to talk about maybe about where we are and about locality. Okay. And location and just where we are at the moment. It's Limerick is identified by its river. It's the most striking visual component of this city, and this is probably the oldest city in Ireland. You know, it's a settlement here gone back to before the time of Christ, and it was Ptolemy even used to call it Regia back then, and there's even drawings of what's just outside us here, along by Arthurs Quay, at the mouth of the Shannon, where the Shannon reaches the sea anyway. And just up the river from it is Classy there, which is one of the most famous parts on it, and I wrote a poem about that in Irish there about a couple of years ago. It's under the Black Bridge. I'm going to hit up. Let me show you my square. Bryhen y tiona fwy'n blyhydol, hart o'r cloch gysiring orsd, oedd o'r haring capel tegr y tra, la sias o limnach chwes. Sian sawn gor hi, sianir na mad, dart o fwca le swyd y darn, gan bort o'r beth, lestig symoel. A wair gyn y li, o wylen ffasi. Casna teistra ffyn rhyddodd, o hwan os cwn yn y li, a hór o bradain ag bog a hart, ar y lig o grinol na sgarri. Cyn a leon i'n sgatad i efnish, o'n lyn at asiant am ac snaraga, as ceg o'r hit o fwylyn fe o hwloch na ama, ffyn yn y tiesgar ar hat gach arag. Nyn y lan o'n, ffyn rhyddodd, idd am ar ôl gangen berha, o'r gwysian bech a choreish, nabys pohol wch, da chéad. Béidir go deochad ís a reisir ís, ceonas soile ní gimach na báiste, chun aimse glua aimsú a hua, and as fofa William Flassy. In English, just anybody who didn't catch that, I'm sure there's one or two of you. Under the Black Bridge is the name of it. Under the Black Bridge, the Shannon flows past the ancient stone and ironwork, where once broad horses towed their loads to the hungry mouth of Limerick. And sometimes their old barging men might slake their thirst at the waterside inn, dreaming of nothing very much as their gaze found rest on Classy's Hill. Under the Black Bridge, the angler casts his hope beyond the dunking swans, in search of fat salmon wriggling past on their path to spawn. And though currents change and drifting nets have cut the run to a paltry few, and though the mill has crumbled 2 times steps, each spring the fisherman's right renews. Under the Black Bridge, 2 lovers lie, with hearts aflame for each other, when to the queue of the heron's cry, they pledge a life together, and perhaps someday they will return. Children raised, house now still, to recreate those panting drought beneath the ruins of Classy's Mill, Limerick.
Now we're delighted to have Terry Murray who's going to read, and I'm sure Terry will tell you something about the poem she's going to read. Here we go, Terry.
Thank you, Donald. I'm going to read a poem by Laurie Lee, an English poet. I read a book called Cider with Rosie when I was about 14 and I was hooked. But This is from a 1947 collection. It's called Candles in Blue, and the name of the poem is April Rise. April Rise. If ever I saw blessings in the air, I see it now in the still early day, when lemon green and vaporous morning drips wet sunlight on the powder of my eye. Blowing bubble films of blue, the sky wraps round weeds of warm light, whose every root and rod splutters with soapy green, and all the world sweats with the beads of summer in its buds. If ever I heard blessing, it is there, where birds and trees that shoal and shadows are, splash with their hidden wings, and drops of sound break on my ears their crests of throbbing air. Pure in the haze, the emerald sun dilates, the lips of sparrows milk the mossy stones, while white as water by a lake, a girl swims for green hands among gathered swans. Now as the almond burns its smoky wick, dropping small flames to light the candle grass. Now as my low blood scales a second chance, if ever worlds were blessed, it is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. And our next poet is Christy O'Donnell. Christy will tell you what he's going to read.
I'm going to read The Neighbours. Cremation of Sam McGee by Robert Service. There are strange things done in the midnight sun by the men who moil for gold. The Arctic trails have their secret tales that would make your blood run cold. The Northern Lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest they ever did see was that night on the marge of Lake Lebarge I cremated Sam McGee. Now Sam McGee was from Tennessee, where the cotton blooms and blows. When he left his home in the south to roam round the pole, God only knows. He was always cold, but the land of gold seemed to hold him like a spell, and I'd often say in his homely way that he'd sooner live in hell. It was a Christmas day, we were mushing our way over the Dawson Trail, and talk of your cold through the parkless fold, it stabbed us like a driven nail. And if our eyes we closed and the lashes froze till sometimes we couldn't see, and it wasn't much fun, but the only one to whimper was Sam McGee. And that very night, as we lay packed tight in our robes beneath the snow, and the dogs were fed and the stars o'erhead were dancing heel and toe, he turned to me and Cap, says he, I'll cash in this trip, I guess, and if I do, I'm asked that you won't refuse my last request. Well, he seemed so low that I couldn't say no, and then he says with a sort of moan, it's the cursed cold and it's got right hold, till I'm chilled right through to the bone. Yet it ain't been dead, it's my awful dread of the icy grave that pains. So I want you to swear that foul or fair, you'll cremate my last remains. Now a pal's last need is a thing to heed, so I swore I would not fail. And we started on at the streak of dawn, but God, he looked ghastly pale. And he crouched in the sleigh, and he raved all day of his home in Tennessee. And before nightfall, a corpse was all that was left of Sam McGee. There wasn't a breath in that land of death, and I hurried, horror-driven, with a corpse half-hid that I couldn't get rid because of a promise given. It was lashed to the sleigh, and it seemed to say, you may tax your brawn and brains, but you promised true, and it's up to you to cremate those last remains. Now a promise made is a debt unpaid, and the trail has its own stern code. And in the days to come, though my lips were dumb, in my heart how I cursed that load. And in the long, long night by the lone firelight, while the huskies round in the ring, how loud their woes to the homeless snows, oh God, how I loathe that thing. And every day that quiet clay seemed to heavy and heavier grow, and on I went, though the dogs were spent, and the grub was getting low. The trail was bad and I felt half mad, but I swore I'd not give in. And I'd often sing to the hateful thing, and it hearkened with a grin. Till I came to the marge of Lake Labarge, and a derelict there lay, and it was jammed in the ice, but I saw on it thrice. It was called the Alice May. And I looked at it, and I thought of it, and I looked at my frozen chum. Then here, said I with a sudden cry, is my crematorium. Some planks I tore from the cabin floor, and I lit the boiler fire. Some coal I found that was lying round, and I heaped the fuel higher. And the flames they soared, and the furnace roared, such a blaze you'd seldom see. And I burrowed a hole in the glowing coal, and I stuffed in Sam McGee. And then I made a hike, for I didn't like to hear him sizzle so. And the heavens scowled, and the huskies howled, and the wind began to blow. It was icy cold, but the hot sweat rolled down my cheeks, and I don't know why. And the greasy smoke and an inky cloak went streaking down the sky. Now I do not know how long in the snow I wrestled with grisly fear, but the stars came out and they danced about, here again I ventured near. I was sick with dread, but I bravely said, I'll just take a peep inside. And I guess he's cooked. And it's time I looked, and the door I opened wide. And there sat Sam looking cold and calm, in the heart of the furnace roar. And he swore with a smile, you could see a mile, and he said, please just close that door. It's fine in here, but I greatly fear you'll let in the cold and the storm. Since I left Plumtree in Tennessee, it's the first time I've been warm. There are strange things done in the midnight sun by the men who toil for gold. The Arctic trails have their secret tales that would make your blood run cold. Those northern lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest they ever did see was that night on the marge of Lake Labarge, I cremated Sam McGee.
Today is World Book Day, and we're here with Quay Books and Limerick Writers Centre to bring you poetry. It's also the 400th anniversary of the death of Shakespeare and of Cervantes, and as you can see the roses and the colours of Catalan, it has special significance. The only better place you could be than here today would be in the middle of sunny Barcelona. Our next reader is John Pinchmith.
Thanks so much, Donald. I was going to read The Ages of Man, but it's already been read. So I'm going to do one of the sonnets. And I just want to say, not only do I have a Shakespeare t-shirt on that I bought at the famous Folger Library in Washington, D.C. in the year 2000. And it's got Shakespeare in the new millennium. And of course, today is very special, the 400th anniversary of his passing. I taught Shakespeare for 35 years as a high school teacher, and he's my favorite writer, so it's great that we honor him today. This is Sonnet 65. Since brass, nor stone, nor earth, nor boundless sea, but sad mortality o'ersways their power, how with this rage shall beauty hold plea, whose action is no stronger than a flower? Oh, how shall summer's honey breath hold out against the wrackful siege of battering days, when rocks impregnable are not so stout, nor gates of steel so strong, but time decays? Oh, fearful meditation, where, alack, shall time's best jewel from time's chest lie hid? Or what strong hand can hold his swift foot back? Oh, who would his spoil of beauty can forbid? Oh, none, unless this miracle have might, that in black ink my love may still shine bright. Thank you very much.
Finally, we're going to finish. I'm asking Dominic Taylor, who's Director of Limerick Writers Centre, to say a few words. Thank you very much. Thanks a million, Donald. And well, it only remains for me to thank all of you for coming out today.
the readers and the audience for listening, and the staff of the Arthurs Quay Shopping Centre for allowing us to bring you our little celebration for World Book Day here to the Mall here in Arthurs Quay. Plus, I'd like to thank Maria of Quay Books, who are our partner in this. You know, we are delighted to be partnering Quay Books again for the third year, celebrating UNESCO World Book Day here. Now, I believe that this was and is an important occasion, not just because of the wonderful words that we've heard today, but because we are actually here in the heart of a public shopping mall, bringing literature and creativity to the people, exposing them and ourselves to a different world, and breaking down the barriers between art and life. So that, in the words of the Italian poet Anna Maria Teresa, we do not grow old without remedy. If I may finish on that idea of art and life, I want to crunch two great writers' words together, the Peruvian poet Cesar Cavea and the Liverpool songwriter and peace activist John Lennon, by saying, art is life if you want it. Okay, thank you. And hopefully we will see you maybe next Thursday in the Hunt Museum for a lunchtime reading.